You, Auntie. Thank you. I was I worked for the ABC for 24, 25 years until the end of last year. Just for those of you who don't know who I am, and presented the breakfast program on ABC Radio. And just 6 months ago, presented that breakfast program from the Crete Street Theatre just next door here. It was probably my favourite. Well, apart from Thursday Island, which was a pretty special outside broadcast as well, I have to say, I think Crete Street was probably my favourite broadcast that we did last year, so I feel very welcome here on You Can Bear Country. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think we've formally welcomed Elizabeth Taylor, the star of today's event.
Thanks, Vincent.
Thank you all very much for coming along. I want to start off, and just for those who are listening to this is being recorded, by the way, and for those who are listening on the Logan City Council Library's website, you would not have fit in the room. Standing room only here, just to paint the picture for those who are listening to this at home or in the car or wherever they're listening. Such is the draw of you, Elizabeth. So congratulations on filling the room here today. Can I get a sense, first of all, of who in the room here has experienced past life regression hypnotherapy? I'm going to say 40% of the room. Thank you. And who in the room is in the book? Or knows, knows that you're in the. I know you're in the book. Sorry, put the hands up again if you're in the book. Okay, so about half a dozen of you. Okay, that was just so that Elizabeth, you did say that most of the people here will understand the general concepts. I'm very new to this whole thing.
Wonderful.
Yes, I know that's part of why you asked me to do this, because you like explaining to people who maybe are a little bit skeptical. And I am a little bit sceptical. I'll let everyone know that. Don't all turn on me at once.
Oh no, they love people like you.
Yeah, well, I know. You say that a few times in the book as well. But let's just start off. And maybe as much as in this room, there are a lot of people who understand the concept and have even experienced connection with past lives. I'm thinking that people listening on the library's website might not. So let's start off with the basic concept. What is past life regression therapy, and what are these past lives that it allows you to see?
Okay. Well, I don't see them. So when I do a past life regression for somebody, I get them into a very relaxed state, and they see it for themselves. They tell me. They actually are physically in the situation. So, for example, if in 50 years' time I was regressing everybody in this room and asking them to look back on this day, they would actually be able to see themselves sitting here and you and I talking and having that conversation. And they would be able to pick up the book and go, wow, that's got to be the best book in the world, Earth, the toughest boot camp in the universe.
And again, I'm just wanting to sort of build a framework of definitions, and we'll go back into all of this in more detail. But how many lives does someone live on the Earth?
Generally, it depends, but usually about 800 or 900.
And each of those lives teaches us a different lesson, right? You can see how I'm just getting my head around what you've written about.
So I can understand that. So when a soul, you have to really go back to when the soul was created, and that's a big story. But let's say we know that at the moment, because it's an hour's conversation on its own. We come down into somewhere, not necessarily Earth, but we have a life. And in that lifetime, we are given what's called free will. So we can make our choices about what we'd like to do. But like most, let's talk about humans, like most human beings, we make some wrong choices. We make some choices that aren't really to our benefit. And so those choices become our lessons. So when we keep repeating the lesson that we don't learn, then we come to the end of that lifetime, we go back upstairs and we're sitting around a floaty table. An analogy.
Yes, and everyone imagines that floaty table differently.
Yes, and they say, your spiritual guides say to you, what would you like to learn when you go back? I don't want to ever murder somebody again. That was the most horrible thing. I want to understand. I want to learn a lesson. I want to understand it again because I want my soul to grow, because our souls are all about moving forward. So we develop our lessons and our purposes through each lifetime.
And then when do our lives ultimately end? When do we live our last life on Earth? You say in the book that this is your last life
It
on
is.
Earth,
Well,
for
so
example.
they tell me upstairs.
Yes. So does that mean that that is because you have learnt what you have to learn? Is it?
Not yet, but I will. I've got time. They tell me I'm going to live to 101. But really, towards when you begin to realise that you can't escape your lessons or your purpose, you can't escape it, no matter how hard you try. It's like sand, just keeps going until you make it solid. And when you make it solid and face your challenges in life, face your challenges, face your problems, realise that they're not the big deal that you think they are, then you start to grow as an individual.
And what happens to you next after this life?
Well, that's a good question. But I suspect I might become somebody like a guide myself, because I have had a lot of lifetimes and I have a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience. And I say that with humility. But I imagine that I would go up there. But when you do go up there, you have to become an apprentice guide first. You don't just put the shoes on and go, I'm going to start guiding somebody. You've got to work. It's the same. It's a different... It's actually not really up there. It's only about like this here. They're all in here listening this morning, by the way.
Okay. Well, hello to those who are in the room listening. Okay, so that's the overall concept, and none of that is new or news to most of you in this room, I suspect. Okay, so let's rewind. Tell us about your childhood and your upbringing and life before you were introduced to all of this, because there did come a moment in your life where this was introduced to you.
Yes.
But prior to that, just give us a sense of what you were.
Well, I had a
you were
very
doing.
exciting childhood, a very happy one. My father was a gold miner up in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and he and Mum, after World War II, Mum and Dad moved up and lived in a little, not even a hut, like a canvas tent thing. They drove all the way up in an old car up there, and my sister was a few years old, and then Mum fell pregnant with myself. And but our family's always been about art, creativity, the land, gold, very music. So I've grown up in a family full of very creative people. And I had a very happy childhood. I went to St Margaret's School in Brisbane, and was in the Air Force as a dental nurse for quite a few years.
That was news to a couple of people in the room. There was interesting.
Yeah, it is a bit. It is a bit. And then I married and had that marriage sadly didn't last, but I had two beautiful children, and now I have a wonderful husband, Dennis.
And so tell us about, there was a stone handed to you, wasn't there, by Simone, that was the start of your spiritual journey.
Yes. And I must say to everybody listening today, when they read the book, that every name has been changed in the book, except for the people who've given me their permission. So this particular story is completely opposite in name and gender.
So what was his name then? No, I'm kidding.
You'll have to pay me a lot of money for that one. No, it was very interesting because I was at a very low point in my life, and I went to see this person to have a reading, and I'd been to them many times before, and they're very well known and very, very good at what they do. But they gave me, this person, I've got to keep thinking gender here, she gave me this stone, and it didn't mean much to me at the time, but the stone, in the end, there was an energy attached to the stone, and the stone possessed me. And so for about 4 months I was completely and utterly possessed, and to the point where Dennis was just about to have me tied up and carried away. I could do everything, anything. Absolutely knew everything in that period of time. And then fortunately I was introduced to somebody who sorted that out and asked the young man, he was actually a helicopter pilot, who was very remorseful for manipulating my emotions, I guess you could put. But what it did was to set me well and truly on the journey, because I've known all my life that there was something about my abilities. And my grandmother, I mentioned in the book, used to have little women come and have these little meetings when I was a girl. I used to say, "Can I come, Nana?" And she'd say, "No, you can't come." But she was a Rosicrucianist who believed of course, in the metaphysical. So I sort of had it all around me, and I'd touch furniture, and I'd instantly see the people that had owned it, and all sorts of crazy stuff, you know.
From when you were given the stone?
No,
Or even
way before then.
Before that?
Yeah, but the stone really was, as I said to my guide, to Loris, "Why did you let that happen to me?" And she said, you wouldn't take any notice, so we got a big concrete ball and hit you in the head, so you did take notice.
So a couple of the first things that you then looked at from your own past lives, I mean, you had a childhood nightmare, didn't you?
I
about
did.
Drowning.
Yes. So every night, up until I was about, I don't know, into my teenage years, I'd fall out of a boat every night into this thick, slimy green water, and and I'd wake up screaming in my bed, and Mum and Dad would come in and, settle me down again. And when I heard about my first past life, it was about, lived in the Mississippi. I was a little, dark-skinned girl, and I'd had an argument with my siblings, which nothing's changed, by the way, many lifetimes later. But I was very good at going out into the swamp with these long, skinny boats, apparently, that they had, and had my pole, and my pole got caught in some sticky roots, and I fell out and drowned in thick, slimy green water, and my chin got caught in the roots, and I drowned, which, as a matter of fact, until then, I was always very afraid of thick, slimy green water. And in fact, there's a cousin of mine in the room here today, which I'm so thrilled about, but she actually saved me once from drowning, because I was in this little pond, and it was deep, and I had the same feeling that I'd had from that lifetime. Interesting, isn't it?
And so these sort of fears, we're sort of starting to get a sense of what might be something you're fearful of in your current life.
Yes.
Often has meaning from many
Always.
lives ago. And just on nightmares, just a quick question: Are all nightmares traceable back to past lives?
Most of them, but not all of them. Some of them can be current fears, and any dream or nightmare, because I've studied a lot about dreams over a period of years, it's the subconscious mind's way of releasing or letting you become aware of, or releasing that fear, or that, fear that you have within you. Yeah.
Some of your earliest experiences tapping into your past lives.
Yes.
You describe in the book seeing your dead body on a rubbish heap being eaten by wild dogs.
Yeah, in Egypt.
That's pretty horrific to see yourself being eaten.
Yeah.
Does the subconscious ever show you things that could make things worse for you?
No. The subconscious is a very, very, what's a good way of putting this? Very thoughtful part of you. It's you. Very thoughtful. So it knows how to show you something you can handle, but also as a regressionist myself, and I've been doing this a long time, it's my role, as I'm talking to the subconscious, and it's or the person seeing the past life and experiencing it. People have had incredible experiences with what they're doing. Bye-bye, Bert.
Thanks for coming. Bert has a lot on today. Being a Saturday, MPs wouldn't want their life.
I've lost my train of thought now. Where was I?
Well, you were talking about whether or not, I'd asked you whether or not the subconscious ever shows you things that can make things worse for you.
So just to explain to you, when somebody comes to see me, and I've sent them a letter with lots of questions, the subconscious mind is going through like a little filing cabinet, deciding on the past lives that it's going to bring forward for someone to see, to help them to become better, to help them to get over fears and all sorts of things. So when they're seeing this past life, I'm there telling people that you're only observing this. So it's a lot of it's got to do with the therapist in terms of helping people to get through it and see it without the trauma.
If you're trying to understand why someone behaves the way they do, like Isabella's sister in the book.
Oh, yes.
again, that could be because of something that happened in a past
Oh,
life,
it
right?
was. Yes, that's right.
Or marks on your body.
Oh, yes, that's very interesting. Swordfish, for
The
example.
swordfish. Is
Yeah.
the swordfish in the room today?
The swordfish is in the room. It's one of my favourite questions when I'm regressing someone. As beforehand, I ask them, "Do you have a birthmark, or a scar, or even a mole of some kind on your body?" And then when I get to talk to the subconscious mind, I ask, "What's that scar on that body? What does that mean?" And the subconscious mind say, "Oh, that's nothing. That's when he was speared, when he was, one of King Arthur's knights or something like that."
And in the case of the swordfish, that was eczema.
The eczema,
Yes.
which this person's had since she's been a child,
Yes.
and the eczema is to remind her of her life as a swordfish and her life in the ocean.
And there was, I think, the scales from the swordfish.
Yes,
I think
the
you described.
scales, yes.
So you can be a fish.
Can be a stone.
You can be the wind, effectively, or like
Correct.
elementals, I think is the word that you use.
Well, everybody has been everything. Black, white, Chinese, indigenous, everything.
You'd think we'd all get on better then, wouldn't you, in
You
2017?
would, yeah. But we have to be everything for the soul to finally develop. We have to understand the wrong and the right. So if you've been a murderer in one lifetime, then you are going to feel what it likes to be murdered in another lifetime. That's after having regressed hundreds and hundreds of people. I've discovered this isn't my own, by the way, my own, idea.
Experience. All right, okay. Okay, so now your purpose on this planet right now is to teach.
Yes.
Is to share,
Educate.
is to write books, is to have rooms of people come together like this.
Yes.
And this is something that was said to you 5 or 6 years ago?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, it came about with, because I've been teaching a long time. I like to call it educating rather than teaching.
I like that as a word. I've just, sort of sidebar, I've just started doing some teaching, radio teaching at University of Southern Queensland. And I've decided I like the term educator
Yes.
rather than teacher. So
Well, you're not teaching,
No, that's
you're
right.
just showing.
Yes.
Just showing and letting people come. But I've travelled a lot. I've been over to New York to the Omega Institute and done some studies there. And as I've travelled around, I've just been told multiple times by many different people that one day you're going to be travelling the world, writing books, and here I am doing it.
Raziel?
Raziel, Archangel Raziel.
Okay, so tell
You've
us.
got to give me little hints because a lot goes on in my life.
No, that's
you know.
right. No, well, I particularly wasn't quite sure how to pronounce it, and neither were you the first time that you encountered him, right?
No,
So-
Archangel
so-
Raziel. Yeah,
yes.
he's here. He's standing right behind you there.
Okay. Hi, welcome. But Raziel brought you and 4 others together.
He did, the
You-
chosen 5.
You had lived together in the 1700s, and one of those other 4 is here today, Victoria.
2 of them.
Oh, I'm sorry. So
Two of them?
you're not Neil. Helena. Okay, so we have 3 of the 5
Yes, we do.
in this room.
We do.
This is a very powerful room.
Yes.
I hope the 3 of you never fly together. You know, that whole thing about Coca-Cola never lets its executives fly together.
It's,
So-
let me just say something before
Yes.
you continue.
Go on.
There are many different people in the world who are chosen. And I would go so far as to say that Auntie Robin's a chosen one. She represents her people. And we all come here everybody in this room has a purpose for being here on earth. And we, the 5, were meant to work together. And that's why they call them the chosen 5. The chosen 5 were meant to work together. It's not like we're, better or higher than anybody else. It's just that we're meant to work
So
together.
are you saying there are other groups of 4 and 5 like
I
this
don't
at the
know.
moment?
I don't
Okay.
know that.
All right.
I don't know
So-
that.
but-
But
so-
I did regress someone the other day, and her subconscious mind had said that she is a chosen one. So it means that you've got a powerful lot of work to do on earth to help people to heal.
And so you say in the book that Raziel has asked the five of you to travel,
Correct.
hold seminars. I think even the word seminar is used.
Yes. We've already done a little bit of that.
You've done some of that here, but
Yes.
not yet around
No,
the world.
no,
So that's
no.
that's
I'm
next.
the. You know, they're holding onto my shirt tails. I'm the first one. I'm the first cab off the rank.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get our head around the universe
Yep.
as it's explained to you and to your clients.
Mm-hmm.
So Raziel, in the book, Raziel told Neil
Yes.
through you
Yes.
that Atlantis still exists.
Correct.
And is being kept from humans.
That's right.
Okay. What is it and where is it?
Well, if you read further in the book, and you know you have, there's a chapter called "Does Atlantis Really Exist or Still Exist?" And this particular subconscious mind, who got very frustrated with me because I'm trying to get my head around where this Atlantis is actually everywhere. It still exists. It still works. It still has a very powerful energy about it. And as the subconscious mind said, when I'm trying to get my head, it's a good chapter. It says, Elizabeth, if you could dig and dig and dig underneath you, you would find Atlantis. But Atlantis isn't one place, and there are. And this is not me telling you this. This isn't me making this up. This is coming from the subconscious minds, lots of subconscious minds that I've asked the question to, that there are many leaders of Atlantis. It's like its own world, you might say.
Does it have does it physically exist
Yes.
somewhere
Yep.
on the planet
Yep.
at the moment? You
Yes.
could go there if you knew where it was.
Yeah, well, that's what I asked. Can I go there? And they said, you'll go when you're invited, Elizabeth. That's what the subconscious mind told me.
And so again, these are things. I'm trying to now just create a picture of the universe,
Yes, yeah.
and which is what you've come to learn through from
Yes,
various subconsciouses.
yeah.
So what are the Akashic
Records?
Yeah.
One of the things that before I answer that question, because don't forget I'm a mere human, mere mortal here, and I always remind myself, and I always say to Helena and Victoria, make sure my feet stay firmly planted on the ground, that there is more than one lot of Akashic Records. That's what I've learnt from the many people that I've regressed. But the Akashic Records is simply like this library here. And, well, it's a little bit more glamorous than this. Sorry, Lainey.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool place. But it has the record, so every individual, every soul has for want of a better analogy, is a good analogy, has got their own book at the Akashic Records, and it has the record of every lifetime you've had and everything you've ever done.
So you take people to look at their book.
I don't take people anywhere. I really want to make that very, very clear, because I'm not responsible for. I'm responsible for making sure of the safety, mental and physical welfare of my clients. But the subconscious mind may choose to take them. So this particular, I know what you're referring to, and this particular client that came to see me, who, when somebody comes to the end of a lifetime, I can take them up into the light, which I often do if they've had a traumatic experience of seeing themselves, something happen to them, which doesn't mean anything once you've passed away. You go, oh, thank God I'm out of that body, you know. But you can go to that place, and then this particular person that you would have read about goes to the Akashic Records and sees for herself what she wants to see.
I was out last night at a concert in the city with some friends, and I was telling them all about
Were
the
you
book.
celebrating your birthday?
I was, actually.
It's your birthday on Thursday.
Yeah. And so I talked quite a lot about what was in the book.
Yes.
Because it is fascinating. And this next bit really is this is something that had us scratching our heads going, wow, that's okay, let's take this in. The fact that we spend, it is possible, and you give an example in the book, it is possible that your own children from your last life are still alive and walking the earth today.
Correct.
What happens if you meet them?
Well, there are actually stories about that, because a lot of children in their... I'll answer that, but I'm going to answer a little bit into... I never answer anything straight up. There are books written on children who say, "Mummy, you're not my real mummy. You know, my mummy lives 3 suburbs away and she lives in this house," and they go there and then they say, "Oh, you're my mummy and that was my bedroom," and so a lot of careful understanding has to come about. But the young lady that you're referring to, I regress this young woman. She's only 16, which I very rarely regress someone that young, but she was a very advanced, mature girl for her age. And she landed, even her body language was amazing when I was regressing. She landed and she's in combat outfit, and she's on the outskirts of New York, and she's looking for Mexican people selling drugs and arms and things like that. And then I take her to an apartment, and she picks up the newspaper and tells me the date on it. Anyway, she dies from a heart attack, and when I take her to the light, I'm thinking, hang on, she just gave me a date on that newspaper. Hang on, she's only just come back into this lifetime.
A very recent date, wasn't it?
Oh my
Yes.
goodness. Her wife and children are still alive in New York. Okay. So, being the girl that she is, she says, "Cool, Libby." But to meet, people do meet, go back and see their families.
Can she now consciously go and track
If she
them down
chose
in
to,
New York?
yeah, she'd be able to
and
do that.
And that would be...
She would choose to do that. You'd have to
The
be
universe
very
isn't
careful.
going to explode or anything like that if that happens.
No, well, you wouldn't just go and knock on the door and say, "Hey, you know, you were my wife."
That's in a previous life.
Yeah.
No.
That'd be a bit of a shock,
I can
wouldn't
imagine.
it? Yeah.
Now, all of this is not just happening on Earth, is it?
No, there are many planets. There are many universes. I didn't know that myself. I've just met various, in the book. It's my favourite expression these days. But there are many, many places that we don't know exist that do.
The weather is controlled by love.
Correct.
That's a headline. That could be on the front page of the Courier Mail. That
I thought so too.
Not sure how farmers will take to the idea, though, that drought is caused by them not giving enough. Have I got this right? That too much take and not enough love.
This is not me saying that.
All of this, absolutely.
Yes, this is a subconscious mind saying that. And I think that the Indigenous people, Auntie Robin, I think that you would completely agree with this, that if you take from the land, you have to give back to the land with respect and with true spiritual respect. And that if you take from the land like that, the land will always provide back again. And although the farmers and I know we've got some very good friends who are on properties, so this isn't a negative to them. They all work hard and it's very difficult and the weather really is their enemy. It's all about turning it over and putting the what am I trying to think of? Got a blank. To help things grow. I can't. What do you? Nurturing. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of what you physically put into the land. Fertilizer.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was never a green thumb.
Oh yeah. So, but the thing is that when you do respect Mother Nature, the earth, when you do respect the earth will respect you back, and that's what this subconscious mind says. And this woman you read about, she's actually a Buddhist, a Chinese Buddhist. Like just this language she was having was like when she came out of her regression and listened to it, she was completely blown away.
Just in terms of, I want to get a sense of physically how you regress someone. Now, now at the beginning I asked for a show of hands, not at the moment.
Now?
I did have nightmares that it might end up with that happening.
It's all right.
So that nightmare can be traced to how you in a previous life did something to me, right?
Possibly.
So 40% of the room, as we established, 40% roughly, have had a regression. But
yes.
For the rest, including myself, explain physically what happens in the room. You lie down, do you?
Yeah. First of all, a very important part of it is that I interview you for about an hour, and I find out all about your life, who is your heritage. Going back to your grandparents, the country you came from, your cultures, and specifically, I ask who you love in the family, who you just like I don't know, whatever it is, you just feel drawn to that person, and then the opposite to that, like you're repelled by somebody. So with all that knowledge, it's not for me that I ask that question. It's the subconscious mind filtering through, working out what they're going to bring forward. So once we've got all that done, I lie somebody down on the bed and I sit next to them and I record it all so they can take it, they take it with them. And it's a little bit, like it's similar to having an anaesthetic. When you think, I'm not going to sleep, I'm still awake, and then they're saying, wake up, Spencer, it's all over. It's similar to that, except that
So you can't fight it?
Very rarely, unless you're trying to control it, but I'm pretty good.
I bet you are.
So when the ego decides it's going to get in the way, which usually the ego does, I'm very, very, very good at telling the ego where to go. Okay? So once I've got the person...
I'm not about to drop off, am I? No.
You're
got
safe.
me under.
You're safe.
Okay, no, go on.
You're safe right now.
Go on.
I don't know enough about you
No,
yet.
go on.
So when I get you to that point, then I have a technique which I then allows you to go back in time. And I'm just talking to you. And before you know what I'm saying, have a look down at your feet. What are you wearing on your feet? And it's like Chika, the young Aboriginal girl that was about the rainbow serpent, which is such a beautiful chapter. And she looked down her feet and she went, this woman's lying on the bed, and she said, oh, I've got brown feet. So you're right in it. You're actually right in it.
And you can do it, I think you say in the book, sometimes just by touching a person.
I can, yes.
Okay.
I can actually do it without even seeing them, meeting the person. I do past lives for people all around the world because I'm a channel medium. I call on their guide and I ask them to tell me of a past life that's significant for the person, and then I send it overseas and they go back and, how did you know I was a gypsy? How did you know all this?
And you do it via Skype even sometimes now,
when I've finished doing the regression, when I'm finished doing the past life,
yes.
I write it all out, and then after I've sent it to them, then I talk to them on Skype. By the way, I did a past life for Dr. Brian Wise, who's a very famous doctor, a psychiatrist in America who wrote Many Lives, Many Masters, and I actually did one for Brian, which is like quite a big deal, really, isn't it, gang? Hey.
Well,
and he, by the way, I won't tell you because it's confidential, but the lifetime that he had, he just looked at me, because I did it without even seeing him. He looked at me and said, that family in this day, because it went back to the 10th century, are our best friends in New York.
You're very excited about the fact that more and more formally trained medical professionals are opening their minds to all of this, aren't you?
I am very excited because they're beginning to see that a lot of the mental issues that people have directly relate to something from their past lives, and they're learning it. I've had many students who are medical Western doctors.
You must find it fascinating when you have someone under. I don't know if you use the term under, but you're hearing
resting.
You're hearing from them resting about a past life. Are there times when you don't want to? You just want to keep asking questions and listening.
Oh yes. Yeah. I mean, some of them are so extraordinary, and sometimes they're so challenging. I'm actually myself, who's pretty good with the old, talking, trying to get the right questions to get the best answers out of them. For the client, who's the number one priority, but also...
But you must find it fascinating.
It is fascinating.
To hear so much. Okay, let's touch on skepticism.
Love it.
Why? Why do you love it?
Because it means that the person will be skeptical, but there's still a little part of themselves that's intrigued. And that's the little bit I like, Spencer.
So you're drawing a distinction between skeptics and outright non-believers.
Yeah, an outright non-believer. For the outright non-believer, I have complete respect. And I don't even attempt to try and to talk to change their mind or do anything with it, because when they die and go home, they'll go, oh, God, she was right.
So if you don't, I was going to ask you what happens to you if you don't believe any of this.
You still have your lessons.
You go through your life, you still learn,
Yeah.
but at the end,
This isn't all about like psychic mediumship, all that stuff, which I can do all that, but it's not all about that. This is about human beings, whatever colour your skin is, whatever race you are, wherever you're from, you're here to learn lessons, and you have a specific purpose in your life to be here. Every lifetime has a purpose.
Why do you need to spend so much time with people before regressing them? Shouldn't you be able to draw out of their subconscious without asking them all those questions first, without asking about the scars and without asking about who they like and who they don't like?
No, because in a way, I'm only there as an instrument. I'm not there to... I don't ask questions that the client has not wanted to ask. I never, ever... A regressor should never ask, oh, while you're under, let me find this out. You must always ask permission so that if you ask something or try... I might ask the subconscious to expand on something, which is understandable. But if you ask something that the client hasn't given you permission to do, then you're stepping into the wrong territory. And the subconscious mind is likely to say, that's not an appropriate question to ask.
So if I were to come to you and say, I don't want you to pre-interview me, and I know I've got a birthmark somewhere, and but that's all the info I give you about that, nothing more specific.
Yeah. Well, that's to your detriment.
But is the subconscious going to provide an accurate
No.
answer?
The subconscious is a very straightforward kind of a character, personality. If you ask it, it will give you the answer. Okay? So a very direct answer. So that's the role of the regressionist, is to have the subconscious mind. So to give you an example of that, I had a lady come to me who'd fallen down some steps and broken her leg. So she wanted to know, why did she break her leg? How did she fall down those steps? And the subconscious mind said, I pushed her. I said, what did you push her for? And I said, because I've been trying to get her body to rest for months and she wouldn't take any notice. So now she had to lie down for 6 weeks.
Okay, but if you knew she had a broken leg but didn't know that she'd fallen downstairs, you wouldn't have been able to draw that out of the subconscious.
The subconscious, that's a very technical, important point, because I don't try and draw anything out of the subconscious mind at all. It's not my role to do that. It's more or less me helping the person and the subconscious mind to connect for that person to find out as much about themselves as possible. So so my role, or the role of a regressionist, is purely to help the interview between the two personalities. And they're very distinct personalities.
You talk about curing a woman who was bedridden for 11 years. And in fact, there's someone in the room who was involved with
Oh, yes.
with that
Actually,
event.
there are 3 people in the room involved with that. Sorry, Spence.
Is there medical proof somewhere of what you claim? You know, that's you claim to have done that, to have returned her to a normal life, because again, there's the skeptic.
But again, I didn't claim that I returned her to a normal life.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Because you can't.
But through the process.
Mm-hmm. So
what I'm saying is, because you're going to travel the world now.
Yes.
And
thanks, Spencer.
So and you'll be on 60 Minutes and what have you.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
get ready for the questions.
Oprah.
All right, so you've got to prepare for the questions, and I'm not here today to...
Are you going to introduce me to Oprah? Oh, thanks.
But, that's an obvious sort of question that will be asked. No. Where's the medical proof of something like that you claim you helped achieve?
All right. Well, I have a doctor who's he'll be, if he is not listening to this today, he'll actually listen to it. And he's in Australia, and he came to me. He's actually been to me 3 or 4 times for regression, and he's also just recently done my course. That's how impressed he was. And the very first time he came to me, this is a very simple one, because I personally understand this very clearly. Do not claim to heal anybody. All right? It's the subconscious mind will say what it's doing to the body to heal it. And I will say something along the lines of, will they notice a difference straight away, or will this happen, or will that happen? No, I'm not going to heal that because they're not learning their lesson. I'm not going to heal their sore ankle because they're not moving forward in their life. The subconscious will say that. But this doctor came to me, and on his list of things and his health issues, he had arthritis in one of his toes. This is a simple one. And when I asked the subconscious mind said that's not the only place he's got it, but he doesn't know about it yet. And I smiled to myself, and then I asked the subconscious how it was healing, because the subconscious is a very, very, very powerful part of ourselves. You know, people that are really ill that say, well, someone's told me I've got cancer, but I'm not going to believe that. Well, you have it, but I'm going to do everything I can. So it's very positive. So the subconscious mind, I asked the subconscious mind what it was doing, and it said, I'm using orange light. And I said, why are you using orange light? And it said, the subconscious mind said has the most powerful, highest vibration of healing. So that was fine, and he did the toe and the hip. And then afterwards, when this doctor came out, he said, what's orange light, Elizabeth? And I said, yes, because that's the subconscious mind talking. You know, if he has no idea what orange light is and the subconscious mind is putting it through the body, then you know that that's happening. And by the way, he hasn't got any arthritis left in his toe. I'll give you his number. You can ask him.
So, almost coming to the end. And,
I know.
I know, right? But if anyone has any questions, have a think about it now, and we'll pass the microphone around. You could have ignored all of this. I mean, you could have said, I don't believe any of this. Mm-hmm. Why did you not ignore it all? Why did you take on this role of educating and sharing now?
It's who I am. It's like telling somebody, you know, not to eat breakfast every morning. I had to do it. It's just in me. It's who I am. My role on this planet of 7.5 billion people is to do my part to help people feel good about themselves and to feel worthy and loved. That's what it's all about.
And ultimately, that is what it all comes down to. Everyone has their issues, don't they?
Everybody.
And what you're arguing is, no, not you, but what you are teaching us is that all of those issues have a reason.
Everything
can be traced back to something, and once you understand it, you can come to terms with it and deal with it in a different way.
It does.
At the very end of the book, you're writing and channeling at the same time, rather than recording yourself
with
speaking.
Chilgrahan.
Yes. Yeah. Couldn't you have done the whole book like that? It would have been so much easier, wouldn't it? How does that even work? You just sit down, do you? And
I handwrite it first.
Ah, yes. Yeah. Okay.
So this is called mediumship and channeling, and it's quite mind blowing. They actually call it automatic writing, but so I'm sitting there and I'm asking, and then I just hear it. Like you can hear my voice now, I can hear that voice talking to me. As some of my friends in America who do this sort of work used to say when they drive past a mental hospital, thank goodness it's not 2017 because 20 years ago we might have been in there. But you can't stop the tide, and in this work, there's people in this room that are equally as talented, and you can't stop something that you know is real. It's as real as real. There are so many energies in this room apart from the ones you can see here right now. It's just lucky they don't need a chair.
Yes. All right. Does anyone have any questions for Elizabeth? Do we want to hand them a mic around so we record the questions as well? Is that possible, Peter? Well, we'll see how we go. The first one we should be able to capture on tape. And maybe introduce yourself when we start. Yeah, there isn't actually much.
Libby, loved hearing your story.
Thank you.
Are we all as talented and gifted as you? Greg, sorry.
Every human being on earth has a gift. So I can't say how talented I am or how talented you are, but everybody has a gift. And when people first came to planet Earth, they actually all treated each other with complete and utter love and respect. And they did all sorts of things that they don't do anymore. You know, they could communicate with mental telepathy, they could transport themselves by just boom. But unfortunately, as you know, the years have gone on, people have lost all that gift. But it lies asleep in most of us. And I can answer that like that because I've taught, educated a lot of people and woken up all their talents.
Greg again. Hey, so Libby, you can take any of us and help us get to where you are or along that path.
Well, to get to where I am might take you a little while. I've been doing it a long time, but I can certainly open you. Everyone's got different gifts. So not everyone could channel, but people can see spirit, or people can feel, or people can have intuition and touch. Everyone's got an ability of some kind. Everybody.
Greg, third time, last time. Hey, what's the best thing to do to start to progress along that path?
Is to face your lessons and deal with them in life. Because when you don't face your lesson, when you don't face the challenges that you got, excuse me, Auntie Robin, I have to... I know, you can't duck out because I have a little gift for you.
Thank you very much.
And I've tried to make it look as Indigenous as possible.
Beautiful.
So all the best to your brother for his trip to the UK. Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for coming. Bye.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Auntie.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Were you asking a third question, or
That was three questions.
that was the yeah?
Fourth and last one. What can you do for Spencer? What can you tell us about Spencer?
Next question.
Nothing.
Does anyone else have a question?
Surely there's someone's got a question.
Okay, in the second row. I don't know how we're going to go.
Just walk over.
Yeah.
Hi Elizabeth, I'm very interested in what you're talking about. It's been absolutely enthralling. What I actually want to know, you're saying that, you know, sort of it's about 800 or 900
Yes.
times that we sort of come back. How do we... Okay, different other books that I've read have said about 8 or 9 times that we come back to the earth, or come back as something, we're reincarnated in that.
Yes.
So where do you get 800 or 900?
From the subconscious mind. When a person comes to have a regression, I say to the subconscious, how many lifetimes has Victoria had? And they'll go, 797. How many more she got to go? Depends on what she's got to learn, comes back the answer. And then there's, I think someone's in the room, I'm not sure, but somebody I regressed recently has only had 6, and I thought, oh, you poor
Long way to
thing.
go.
But it depends on the growth of the person. So somebody might come, people come back sometimes too to bring joy to the world. Dame Nellie Melba came back specifically to bring joy to the world with her voice. Steve Irwin came back specifically for the role that he played to open our minds up to, you know, the natural world. And so, and the young girl that I regressed, the one we talked about in New York, landing on the street, you know, in the combat uniform, this is her 7th lifetime.
All right.
So it's none of the facts in the book are my opinion.
No, I get that.
You know, I'm always mindful of not putting my
No.
opinion because it's only a perception that I might have. So when you've got somebody deep into a regression, they will give such truthful answers. It's impossible not to.
That come across really clear. I mean, you know, sort of that no way did I ever think that, sort of you've actually thought about doing
No.
this, and it's your words in there.
Yes.
It's coming from another
Yes.
area. Last question. Regression, are you still doing it for people?
Of course.
I'll see you later.
And the
I've got a special-
website is.
I've got a special diary, and it's got waiting for Spencer.
Keep coming back to this, don't we?
Yeah.
Steve Irwin's quite possibly back already, yeah? Steve Irwin could
Not
be.
necessarily, because he actually came back specifically for this lifetime. Sometimes people are at the end of their lives, and they could go on to other things, and sometimes they say, no, I'm going to go back. Humanity needs that, and then they might not come back again. They're coming back for a specific lifetime. Stephen Hawking is a very good example of that. Very good. He's in the book, by the way.
One of the...
You know that book, The Toughest Bootcamp in the Universe?
that one, yes,
Yeah.
it's a good read. One of the questions that was put to me by a friend of mine about 2 weeks ago when I mentioned that I'd be coming here and doing this was why is it? So this is a skeptic or non-believer saying this. Why is it that these past lives we were all princesses and kings and queens? Now, having read the book, that's not true.
That's right.
There's Hamish, for example, who lived a terrible life as a Viking in Scotland.
Yes, but what a fun guy.
But there are also a lot of kings and queens and princesses when people go back.
They were more in those times, and if Auntie Robin here, she's a princess.
Perhaps if we've been here 800 times, we've all been a princess, or I don't know
We've
whether I've
been
been a
everything.
princess. Well, maybe I have been a princess. A
Hang
black
on,
princess
let me
with
put
scales.
my hand on you for a minute. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, a number of times.
You're making it up. Any other questions? Yes, Lainey at the back.
That's a really wonderful question. The common reason people come is because they're not happy with their lives, and they're in jobs they don't like, or they haven't got a purpose. They feel like they're, a bit like a jellyfish with all these arms and no way to control them. And they find that out. They find out their purpose for being here, and I set them on their way, feeling a lot happier about themselves. Yeah.
But also people are troubled about something specific, aren't they? It might be that they lost a child in childbirth, or
look, and the thing is, it's pretty hard to convince me when I meet anybody that they don't have some kind of an issue. It'd be pretty hard to convince me of that, even the Queen of England. Okay. Because we're here specifically to learn. Okay, well, we've got a purpose, and we get hurt. Somebody does something to us that we don't like, or says something we don't like, or something happens in our lives. Everything that happens in your life has been set down by you before you were born. Everything.
Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this, Elizabeth. I know this is a very exciting day for you because you've been doing this educating for decades, haven't you?
I
But this
have.
is your first book.
It's my first book.
And first implies there will be more.
Yes,
Excellent.
there are.
Good to
yes.
hear.
The young
All right.
person I'm going to be regressing next is standing at the back of the room in that purple shirt.
And may feature in the next book.
He will be. The
Okay.
book's all about him.
So it's the full story. This is the full
shebang.
The full story. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is the book. And how many of you have the book already? One. And how many of you are going to buy a copy today and leave with your book?
You can lie.
I know.
So put your hands up.
Was there anyone that came in here who came in completely skeptical or not believing, including maybe people who were just in the library who wandered in or might have seen my tweets about today? Did anyone come in not believing?
What about your hand?
Okay, Lainey, all right.
Spencer, where's your hand?
No, I'm asking the question. No, we had a conversation beforehand, and I am not. I mean, there's no proof either way. It's like, as far as I'm concerned, it's like the Bible, which you quote from in here as well, and I'm agnostic as far as that's concerned, and there's no. I don't
That's
think there's proof
okay.
either way.
We love you
I
anyway.
do think I'm a fan of science fiction, and all science fiction starts with the question, "What if ... dot dot dot?" It's a bloody good science fiction. It's a very good premise, and who's to say that it's not true? Because a lot of science fiction actually ends up being science fact.
Well, that's the only way they can get it
So-
through to people like you,
So
Spencer.
all right,
Yeah.
there we go. But Lainey, how do you feel about it all?
I think there's lots of universal truths about what you're talking about. That we hear, kindness and love and caring for the land. I can relate. That's what I can relate to. So I think we're talking about universal truths.
Yes, correct.
Would you like to be regressed here and now?
That's naughty,
I'm
Spencer.
diverting attention. That's what I'm doing.
I've got my eyes on you. You've got no. No, I don't do that to people. I'm very thoughtful.
It's like when you meet a psychologist and you're just convinced they're analysing you. That's right. It's like, don't read me now. I'm just trying to.
Actually, I'm more inclined to look at your teeth.
Oh,
Because I was a dental nurse for so long, the first thing I do when I see someone is look at their teeth and go, oh yeah, well, they actually look pretty good, Spencer.
Excellent. Well, enough about me. Thank you very much, all of you, for coming along today. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you. I would like to say a couple of things, though.
Yes.
I'd like to recognise Donald Waters, who said, it's not about me today, but I'd like Don to stand up. And I'll stand up out of this chair, which won't be an elegant
The artist
look.
behind the cover of the book.
Yeah, and I've got a book. Surprise, surprise, Don. And Don's probably in that sort of genre that you are about, the believing thing, even though he didn't put his hand up. I know that to be the case. Thank you, Don. And Don's been we had so much fun doing the book cover, so much fun, and he finally did it really well.
And just on that, before we move on, if you didn't notice outside, the early versions of the front cover are up on the wall just through that door. There are with the tea and coffee, which is next. But yes, you can see the thought process as Don sort of tried to visually express these concepts that we've been talking about. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's okay. And there's a couple of people I'd like to acknowledge here. And the next one is Sylvia, my beautiful editor from Eagle Eye Editing. Stand up, Sylvia. And I want you to clap because, when you read those books at the Fords at the beginning, they say, I couldn't have done it without my editor. Anyone that knows me knows I misspell all the time. And Sylvia had to deal with that. And don't email me and tell me page 44, there's one word wrong.
Actually, on page
I know. The first edition. I know it's there, so don't tell me.
It's there for a reason for you
Yes.
to learn from.
And I'd like to acknowledge a lady called Karen Stirling in the room, and she may not want to stand up, but Karen was actually hugely responsible for me studying this work. And I'm very deeply grateful for that. And also to my good friend Victoria and her partner Nikki, who came up from Sydney. And to you, Spencer. I really appreciated it today.
That's
I
all right.
wish it could go on for longer.
Yeah, I know. Well, maybe we do this in libraries all over the place.
What a good idea.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you everyone for coming. And Lainey particularly, who's just been so supportive of everything that I've done here today. It wouldn't have happened without her, actually.
Well, let's have some tea and coffee, shall we? Sorry, Dennis. Yes.
I'm like you. I give the good 5 heat.
The chosen 5. You can say good though.
I'm like the one that prods all the time. I'm the skeptic as well, you see.
Yes.
But I live through it and see the results of it, and I see the coming and the going. And I've been frightened over the years. What does Elizabeth do? If I've been going to tell him what Elizabeth's done. They'll run me out of town. Because I think in the past there's always been this thing about spiritualism. I mean, it really has been, women got burned to the stake over it. There's still people in Europe now that get killed for their spiritualism, and it's one of those things that. So I've been very careful about what Elizabeth does, and as the 2 girls know, and I give them a hard time, don't I, Helena? About what it's all about, because I like today was the best example I've seen of getting under the surface of what it really is about. And I have been regressed, and I'm not going to tell you who I was.
Oh, come on. He was one of the presidents of the United States. One that was only a president for a month.
That's right. But I'm the one that did all the treatment for the Indians, you see. So. But the question, there was a question I just want to finish up with, if that's all right, because I've always believed that Indigenous people, Red Indians, Aboriginals, have all been very spiritual people. And I used to read, as a kid growing up, I used to read the book called Boney. I don't know if it still happened in the library or not. But Boney was an Aboriginal detective, and I grew up really trying to learn about Indigenous culture. I don't know why I had that. There's got to be some reason in my background that I had this affinity with Aboriginals. With Artie here in the Aboriginalist community, I have a great affinity for. And I must tell you, just recently, Artie, the boys from Beenleigh here, and Jenny will tell you that, they went on to win the award for their choir, for these young kids in the choir in Brisbane just last year. And they sang the national anthem in their language, and I tell you what, I had tears coming down my eyes. It was just a beautiful experience. Don was my co-compare, and it was just wonderful to see these Aboriginal kids. Now, the question I pose is, of course, when I used to read about Aboriginals, they could point the bone at people and they would die. And I wanted to do that in my life. Anyone I had it, I wanted to point the bone at them. But they could do it. There was something spiritual about it. If they pointed the bone at someone, those people died.
So what's your question?
My question is, why are Indigenous people more spiritual, or appear to me to be more spiritual than the rest of them?
Because they have more respect for the land and Mother Nature. They really, whatever they do, they completely respect the land. And even though people may not want to believe it, the spirits do exist. They do exist. The pointing of the bone is psychological. But they still do, they revere the land. And that's not, that's a general thing, because obviously, there are Aboriginals or Indigenous people all over the world that have challenges with things. But that's what they do. Thanks, Dennis.